cannot say I'm doing education but I'm claiming that my students make 5 crores a year. Somebody who is doing pure education, not giving specific securities advice and not making any claims of performance, such people are outside the purview of our regulations, so our intermediaries and other people can freely associate with educational institutions and people who are doing that. First one is what the media likes to call our Finfluencer related regulations. As you know, we have jurisdiction over entities that we regulate. We don't have jurisdiction over entities that do not come and register with us and are not part of our ecosystem. So the way that this works is that the entities which are regulated by us, they are now being mandated that they cannot associate with people who do one of two things, either of two things. One is if they are not registered investment advisors or research analysts and yet they are giving investment advice or research analysis, then that's a inappropriate activity. They're supposed to register with us. Since they are unregistered and they're still doing it, so they're breaking the law. So obviously our regulated entities cannot have any association with them because they're breaking the law. The second is, irrespective of whether they are registered or unregistered, if they are making claims on performance or in terms of, portfolio performance, their service performance, etc., unless it is specifically provided for them to be able to give that information of performance, if they are making claims without that approval, then again they are breaking the law, and therefore again our regulated entities cannot associate with them. So the basic principle here is what you cannot do directly, right? You cannot break the law directly. You cannot do indirectly by associating with people who break the securities law, right? So that's the thinking behind this. Now naturally there is, there needed to be certain provisos and certain carve-outs that we needed because we, as part of our public consultation, we received a lot of feedback, and as you know, we take the feedback very, very seriously. So a couple of things which we have done is that if there are people who are exclusively engaged in investor education, but what that means is directly or indirectly they cannot be playing the role of investment advisor or research analyst. And of course, they cannot be making any claims of return. So you cannot say I'm doing education, but I'm claiming that my students make 5 crores a year. So somebody who is doing pure education, not giving specific securities advice and not making any claims of performance, such people are outside the purview of our regulations. So our intermediaries and other people can freely associate with educational institutions and people who are doing that. The second is that there are some platforms, and we have had very constructive discussion over the last many months with some of these platforms, where they have demonstrated to us that they have the capability both on a proactive basis and on a curative basis to address the issue of people who are breaking the securities law. So if there are unregistered people who are putting content on their platform, or if there are people who are making claims about performance and these are all illegal activities, then they have the ability, and they've demonstrated that ability, to be able to proactively deal with such people and also curatively deal with such people. Then such platforms SEBI can specify or notify, and then what will happen is that our intermediaries and other regulated entities can freely associate with people through such platforms without any fear of breaking our laws, because we are notifying that yes, the platform has mechanisms, and therefore even if, let us assume on a random basis, some random case slips through which is otherwise illegal, the intermediary will not be held accountable because we have notified that platform as people who are taking adequate measures to prevent wrongdoing, right? So this is the first proposal, and of course the responsibility of ensuring that they don't deal with people who are doing illegal work will be on the regulated entities, because those are the ones that come under us. The second area that the board approved today was in respect of the voluntary delisting. We had discussion on this some time ago, and we had mentioned to you that the board had asked us for some data which we presented to them, and therefore now this matter has also been approved today, and there are numerous elements of ease of doing business here. The first is that the fixed price process as an alternative to the reverse book building process will be permitted. Here the requirement is that the minimum price which has been determined as the floor price under the delisting regulations, over and above that a minimum of 15% premium will need to be offered if the promoter wishes to go for a fixed price process. The second is that we had seen that there were difficulties for investment holding companies to be able to delist because of the holding company discount and other related matters. So we have now facilitated that through a scheme of arrangement, they can do selective capital reduction. And what this will mean really is that they will be able to pass on the benefit of the encashment of their holdings, to the extent that they are holding liquid shares, listed shares, to their investors. And the requirement is that at least 75% of such companies, their fair value, should be directly in listed companies, right? So not every company can declare that I am an investment company. Provided that 70% of their fair value lies in listed companies, then they can avail of this. So this is the second flexibility, a new route for delisting which has been provided. In all of this, if the investment company is regulated by another regulator, naturally they would need to comply with the requirements of that regulator as well. The third flexibility that is being given is we are making the counter offer mechanism in a delisting process much more flexible. Earlier, the threshold for making a counter offer was 90% subscription. We have reduced that to 75%, provided that at least 50% of the public shareholding has been tendered. Okay, so this is the third flexibility. Of course, needless to say, the delisting process will succeed only if finally the acquirer reaches 90%. So the final vote still lies in the hands of the investor, whether they want this new acquirer to reach that threshold or not. The fourth area was the introduction of adjusted book value as an additional parameter for determining the floor price. So earlier, the book value was only a parameter that we reckoned for illiquid scrips. We are now introducing that for liquid scrips as well. When I say liquid, I mean frequently traded. However, there has been a carve-out which has been done for public sector undertakings. The reason for that being that very often the public sector undertakings have certain assets, particularly land, building and other things, which are not freely transferable. And therefore, while their value in their books may be X, these properties are not freely transferable, and therefore it would be inappropriate to put that as a minimum value for the valuation. The third thing is that this is more operational, but the reference date for computing the floor price has been changed from the existing requirement of the date of board approval to the date of initial public announcement. The whole logic being that this is the date when it gets crystallized, and we want the undisturbed price to form the basis. The next proposal is an ease of doing business, and you would have seen that we have a number of proposals which went to the board today on ease of doing business, and the reason for that is that we had, as many of you might recollect, we had created 16 different working groups for different stakeholders of the capital market ecosystem with the mandate and the terms of reference that tell us what is it that you would like from the perspective of ease of doing business. So many of those working groups have come back to us now, many of them with interim reports, some of them with final reports. So you should expect to see a whole stream of proposals which are really reflecting, SEBI coming forward to do that ease of doing business for multiple stakeholders. So the first big set of such proposals went to our board today, and so you will see that reflected in the next few proposals that I'm going to talk of. The first is we had a additional disclosure framework for FPIs. This was an August 23 circular that we brought. This was in the context of concentrated holdings in a single group or very large FPIs, and we required them to make additional disclosures.